Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on something we all experience but rarely understand, the very architecture of our emotional lives. Think of it as the blueprint that shapes how you feel, how you react, and how you connect with everyone around you.
So, here's the game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the raw material of our feelings. Then, we'll look at the master skill of keeping those feelings in check. After that, we'll dig into our own personal blueprint, see how our very first bonds are made, and then the grand finale, how all of this stuff plays out in our adult relationships.
All right, first things first. Before we can build anything, we need to understand our materials. So let's talk about the most basic building block of all, emotion itself.
I mean, think about it. We all feel them every single day, right? They're kind of the soundtrack to our lives. But have you ever stopped to ask, what is an emotion really? Where does it even come from?
Well, at its core, psychologists define emotion as that feeling you get when you're in a situation that really matters to you, something that impacts your well-being. It's not just random noise. From the second we're born, way before we have words, emotions are how we communicate. They're how we tell the world what we need, what we love, and what scares us.
And here's something cool. We aren't born with the whole set. For the first 6 months or so, babies operate on what we call primary emotions. You know, the big ones, joy, anger, fear. But then, after about a year and a half, something shifts. As they develop a sense of me, a whole new level unlocks. Self-conscious emotions like jealousy, empathy, pride, and shame. You can't feel pride if you don't have a self to be proud of, right?
Okay, so we've got these raw feelings. But what do we do with them? I mean, you can't just let them run wild. This is where the single most important skill comes in, emotion regulation. This is basically your emotional control panel. It's your ability to turn the volume up or down on your feelings so you can adapt and get things done. When we're babies, we have zero ability to do this ourselves. We need a parent to soothe us. But as we grow up, the goal is for that control to move from the outside in. It becomes our own superpower.
And how we learn this skill has a lot to do with our parents. You can kind of see two main approaches. On one hand, you have emotion coaching parents. They see a kid's sadness or anger as a chance to teach, helping them put a name to the feeling and figure out what to do with it. On the other hand, you have emotion-dismissing parents who might try to ignore, deny, or just shut down those negative feelings.
And the results of that coaching? They're huge. It turns out kids who are taught how to handle their emotions are way better at calming themselves down, they can focus better, and they have fewer issues later on. They're literally being handed the instruction manual for their own emotional world.
Okay, so if emotions are the materials and regulation is the skill, then your temperament, well, that's the personal blueprint you were born with. This is your unique, built-in style of reacting to the world. It's your emotional factory settings, if you will. It covers everything from how intensely you feel your emotions to how good you are naturally at managing them. Some of us are just wired to be more sensitive, others more calm. That's temperament.
Now, a famous study tried to sort babies into these neat categories. You had the easy child, the difficult child, and the slow-to-warm-up child. But here's the fascinating part. A whopping 35% of the kids didn't fit into any of those boxes. It's a perfect reminder that when it comes to our emotional blueprints, we're all incredibly unique.
So, we've got our personal blueprint. Now let's look at how that blueprint is used to build the very first and maybe the most important structure in our emotional lives, our attachment to our caregivers.
For the longest time, the thinking was pretty simple. Babies bond with whoever feeds them. Makes sense, right? Well, not so fast. A really famous and frankly revolutionary study with baby monkeys completely blew that idea out of the water. They found the monkeys didn't care about the wire mother with the food. They clung to the soft cloth mother that offered nothing but comfort. The big takeaway? It's not about food, it's about contact comfort. It's about feeling safe and warm.
So how do you even measure a bond like that? Well, a psychologist named Mary Ainsworth created a clever experiment called the strange situation. Basically, they'd observe a baby in a playroom, see what happens when a stranger comes in, watch how the baby reacts when the parent leaves for a minute, and, most importantly, see what the baby does when the parent comes back.
And what they found were these really distinct patterns. The most common is a secure attachment. This is the kid who treats their parent like a home base. They go explore, but they check back in. They're upset when mom or dad leaves, but happy and easily soothed when they return. Then you have insecure avoidant, where the kid almost seems not to care if the parent is there or not.
And finally, insecure resistant, where the child is super clingy, gets hysterical and the parent leaves, but then weirdly pushes them away when they come back. It's this confusing push-pull.
Okay, so why does all this stuff about babies matter to you right now? Well, because that early blueprint doesn't just disappear. It follows us, and it profoundly shapes our adult romantic relationships.
What happens is that this first relationship creates something called an internal working model. You can think of it as a set of unconscious rules or a mental map about what love is, whether you can trust people, and whether you're worthy of connection. It's the software that runs in the background of all your future relationships.
And you can actually hear these early patterns in the way adults talk about love. Listen to this. Someone with a secure style might say something just like this. That ease with intimacy, that lack of fear, it all points back to an early belief that relationships are safe.
So just for a second, think about your own life, your own relationships. Does that description feel familiar? Or do you find yourself being a little more hesitant, a little more distant? Or maybe you crave closeness but are always worried it's going to disappear? Which one resonates with you?
These patterns generally fall into 3 adult styles. You've got secure people who tend to have a positive view of relationships and are comfortable with intimacy. You've got avoidant people who are often a bit hesitant to get too close and value their independence. And you have anxious people who really want intimacy but are often worried their partner doesn't feel the same, which can lead to more emotional ups and downs.
So here's the final question, the one that really matters. Once you start to understand these building blocks, your raw emotions, your natural temperament, and that deep-seated attachment blueprint, how does that knowledge change things? How might it change the way you build your relationships, and maybe even the way you see yourself? Because this isn't just theory. This is the architecture of you.